Today we're taking a look at two special laptops, the ASUS ProArt PX13 and the ASUS ProArt P16. But I'm really excited about the 13-inch version because this is the first time in a very long time that I've tested a 13-inch notebook with this much performance that didn't have to sacrifice it. And what I mean by that is usually when you stick a powerful processor like the HX370 inside of a laptop, you have to kind of tone down the thermals to accommodate a chassis this small. But these new HX370 processors are so good. That means on paper, you get pretty much the exact same performance in the 13-inch model as you do in the 16-inch version. Now, I did partner with ASUS to compare these laptops, and hopefully this will give you a better understanding of which one might be the better one for you. Right off the bat, the entire body of these designs are very minimal. They're very clean. All you see on it is the ProArt logo in the corner. There's no fancy RGB. It's just a clean black chassis. All of this is made out of aluminum. It's just a very, very well-made product. The P16 is obviously using a very similar chassis to the ASUS Zephyrus G16, and the PX13 really reminds me of the Flow X13 from last year. These are super light laptops, just over 3 pounds for the PX13 and just over 4 pounds for the P16. Now, obviously the color of these laptops will pick up some fingerprints, so you're gonna be wiping these things down a lot, but it really depends on what you want. The PX13 has a display that can rotate 360 degrees. Like, this is a convertible. So if you're gonna be like writing notes and drawing a lot, I'd probably gravitate towards the PX13 because the display on the P16 stops right here. Like, this is how far back it can go. And it's a little bit more awkward to write like this compared to a flat surface. The other little thing to take into consideration is the ports. Now, both of these laptops have a lot of ports. Like, they both have a couple of USB Type-C ports. They're USB 4.0, so you get that high bandwidth. The biggest difference, though, comes down to the micro SD card slot, which is available on the PX13, but on the P16, you actually get a full-size SD card slot. A creator like myself would rather have the full-size SD card slot rather than use a smaller one. Now, when you open up both of these laptops, the hinges are pretty good, a little bit more wobbly on the P16, but not by much. Obviously, you can flip this one into different positions if you want this in tent mode. If you want to strict to watching content, you have that option. But most importantly, they come with something that their regular laptops do not have, and that's the ASUS dial pad. Now, I edit a lot of video, and having this dial pad is so nice. What I personally like to do is have the dial pad enabled. All you gotta do is swipe diagonally on the mouse pad and it lights up, which means it's ready to be used. You can use it for simple things like controlling the volume on your laptop, or I use it in DaVinci Resolve. So if I want to like scroll through my timeline and add custom commands to it, you can totally do that. And this basically goes everywhere with you. If you're a Photoshop user and want to change the size of a brush or the opacity, you can enable it by using the dial pad. It's such a handy little feature. And you don't make any mistakes with it because when you're done using it and you still have access to your touchpad, all you have to do is swipe again and it completely turns off. Complete black deck. The big difference though is you do get more speakers on the P16. We're talking about 6 speakers inside of here. The PX13 being smaller, a lot harder to do, so you only get 2 speakers instead. Now, there's no fingerprint scanner to quickly log you in, but it does have Windows Hello facial recognition. The other thing is, instead of using Armory Crate like their gaming laptops, you have their Pro Creator Hub. And basically this just lets you change all the things you're familiar with. You want to change the performance profiles, you can completely do that in there. You can even change how much shared memory is being shared with the integrated GPU. And there's even a manual mode if you want to like push this laptop to its full potential. But the big difference between the creator version of these laptops and let's say the Zephyrus G16 is the display. You're not getting a high refresh display. And I know some of that might be disappointing for you, but you are getting a higher resolution panel. On the smaller version, it's 3K. On the bigger one, it's 4K. These displays are absolutely gorgeous. They're beautiful. SDR is around 400 nits. Peak brightness is all the way up at 500. The color accuracy is fantastic. The color gamut is fantastic. Okay, so this is what the webcam on the ProArt 16 and the PX13 looks like. Both of these laptops are rocking a 1080p webcam. I'm trying to get as close to them as possible so you can hear the microphone, but more importantly, which one actually looks better and how do the microphones sound? The other thing to take into consideration is that there's a lot of Pro Tools baked into these laptops. There's even a place under their Creator Hub, or Pro Hub rather, where you can actually calibrate the display as long as you have a proper monitoring tool to connect to your laptop. The keyboard experience is absolutely awesome. You have a nice clicky keyboard to type on, 1.7 millimeters of travel distance. The touchpad is obviously much bigger on the P16. It's centered, it's made out of glass. You also have a pretty big touchpad for a 13-inch notebook, and the keyboard experience is identical. But what really shocked me was the performance, because the PX13, you're not sacrificing anything. You can get an HX370 just like the bigger version, and you're not reducing the amount of power it's receiving. The PX13 I have here has an RTX 4060, but you can spec it with the 4070 if you want to. It has a 1 terabyte NVMe drive, and the GPU runs at 75 watts. This bigger version, the P16, also has the same CPU, but it's rocking an RTX 4070 along with 2 terabytes of storage. Now, the price point of these laptops are obviously a few $100s more than the gaming counterparts, but you are getting creative features that you just don't get on the other devices. These perform very well, right in line with their gaming equivalents. If you're using this for Adobe Photoshop, the HX370 runs extremely well, beating out the Intel version of the G16. They're very well optimized for creative work because you can switch back and forth between NVIDIA's creative drivers or studio drivers, then go back to gaming drivers whenever you feel like gaming. Developers are going to like these laptops because of the beautiful OLED display and the good performance. And if you're using this for gaming, the only downfall is the 60 Hertz display. Like, I like a high refresh display, so like first-person shooters won't feel as fluid as, let's say, the G16, but totally fine for games like Elden Ring where you don't need that high refresh rate. If you want to game on these, they perform exactly in line to the G16. Now, fan noise is a little bit different between these two laptops. The PX13 does get a few decibels louder. It's a smaller chassis. It has to push the fans a little bit higher to accommodate. The P16 is slightly quieter. Even with idle tasks, it tends to not ramp up the fans as often because there's a lot more room to breathe in this bigger chassis. Now, the average core clock speeds are very similar in both of these laptops. Obviously, a little bit better in the P16. I mean, there is more thermal headroom. Average temperatures are good on both of these laptops. But yeah, I tested out the GPU and wattage. It's running at 100 watts as advertised and 75 watts for the RTX 4060. Now, internally, they're very easy to get into, and there are a couple of differences. With the bigger P16, you're getting a little bit better cooling. There's just more copper going back and forth, and you also get this third fan. What this third fan does is blow air towards the CPU and GPU. You also get 2 slots for drives. You have one drive that's currently populated, a 2 terabyte stick, gets good read and write speeds, and there's a second slot over here if you want to add a second drive later. There's also a swappable Wi-Fi 7 card. The smaller version, the PX13, doesn't have a full-size 2280. This is the smaller 2230. So the drive speeds are not going to be as fast, but you still get the swappable Wi-Fi card. The other difference is the battery size. This one is 90 watt hours and this one is 73. But surprisingly, the battery differences weren't that massive. Like, the P16 only performed a little bit better. So here's the thing, if you're looking for a creator version of the popular G16, this P16 is it. Adding the dial, having a more color accurate, higher res display with a laptop that's fit for creators is a nice touch. But honestly, I am super impressed with this PX13. Like, this is 13 inches. And we're getting the exact same performance as the bigger P16. Usually in the past, sacrifices had to have been made in order to accommodate this chassis size. This HX370 totally destroys that. And look, like this is even more powerful than the G14, which is crazy. I really hope they release a 2024 model of the Flow 13 because I think it's also going to be really, really popular. If you're interested in checking these out, I'll place links in the description down below. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to hit the like button and yeah, subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one.